Good morning, everyone. My name is Leanne Seawright. I work in the membership development team at Rotary International, and we are so excited for this special session where we get to continue the conversation with the panelists from yesterday's featured breakout session using virtual tools to engage members. So if you weren't with us yesterday, let me give you a quick introduction. We have Lynn McNamee from Texas, Joanne from Singapore, Dave from London, and Kiro from Australia. So one of the attendees at our session yesterday shared this story, and I thought it was a really great way to start. There's a 103-year-old Rotarian from Rio de Janeiro, and he wanted to participate in online meetings. So the members called, they offered him training. They even got his daughter to help him. And since then, he has been involved in pretty much all their virtual club events. So how can we use this as an example for those who say, I am too old for virtual meetings? I would say probably the number one question that we got yesterday was about resistance, about people that are concerned or just don't want to meet online or don't know how. And Kiro, I thought you gave a really great response yesterday. So I'd love it if you could summarize what you said about resistance. And then I'd like to also then open it up to Joanne, Dave, and Lynn. So Kiro, what would you say to people who are resistant to use this type of technology?
Thanks, Leanne. I think the first thing that's really important is to go one-on-one. One of the big problems, one of the difficulties we have is that when we treat people, deal with people in groups, is that they do feel like just another number in the enterprise. So first thing, go one-on-one. Second thing, when you're transitioning, say, a club to something like moving on to Zoom, one of the things that you will find is that typically a number of people are keen to go, a number of others are happy to go with a bit of help, and then there's a third group who would like to go but don't want to be embarrassed, don't want to be made to look silly. So by working one-on-one with, say, those groups 2 and group 3, then you have group 4, which is made up of people who are sort of saying, no way in the world, it's a thing of the devil, I'm going nowhere near it, not a chance. So for the time being, you have a conversation with those guys because you don't leave anyone out, with those people, you don't leave anyone out. You make sure that they're kept involved in conversations about related things, because a change usually, for example, the move to Zoom, usually impacts other things like the things you do during the meeting and that sort of stuff. So keep them involved in those conversations so that over time they'll see everybody else has moved and they're on their own. So this comes down to a test of whether they really want to be there. Has this been become a rusted on habit that is finally breaking? Because we have seen a little bit of that. But the main thing with it is to deal with people individually, to make sure that things like your club planning processes are up to date, that there are courageous conversations about things, that you don't just leave it, don't just assume that people know things, because I've seen that lots of times too. The decisions are made and people don't get all the stories and whatever. And sometimes these acts of defiance and resistance are a protest about something else. So having continuing conversations will get everybody who is prepared to go across the line, giving coaching in private and whatever, so that there's no sort of embarrassment involved. Also can to overcome those things. But if at the end of the day a person is just determined to sort of end it all, we have to respect their wishes. We can use other technologies like telephones or whatever to sort of keep in touch with them and the like, because if we are talking about going online, but we do have to respect their wishes. We can't drag volunteers kicking and screaming into something, because at the end of the day, we are all volunteers. We must respect that.
Kara's brilliant. He says it all really, but no, it's to me, I agree entirely with what he said. I think it's about a package of measures. I think, what's the old saying? Horse and water, you can't really drag them, can you? So you've got to be very respectful of that. And so I think it's a package of measures, as you said. I just got an email this morning from a Rotary Club in Birkenhead in Liverpool, Beetleland, and they produce a weekly video. So they produce a video for their members. So even for those who are technophobes, you can probably access a video perhaps, and that gives them a chance to feel a part of the club. I do a weekly newsletter, again by email, which again gives a round of activities and stuff like that. Phone calls, as Kara was saying. And I think in a sense, you just keep people interested and involved in the club. So I think it's a mixture of new technology and old technology and just good fellowship.
Yes.
Joanne, how about you?
I think for the more senior ones, especially even those who are not so technical savvy, it's important that there's someone in the group that can do really step by step. So really small little steps guiding every part of the journey towards this change. So a lot of people assume I'll give you instructions, you just log on and that's it. But to them, it's very simple. But to the other person, it's like, what am I going to do, you know? So you really have to screenshot. After this step, you're going to see this. When you see this is at the top or wherever, what you need to do step by step to guide them in a small group or in a one-to-one. So I think this is very important, and to reassure them, and also to reassure them that this will open up a lot of opportunities. Because if you look at not just Rotary, if you look at families, you find a lot of grandmas, grandpas actually having, whether it's FaceTime or other tools where they actually have video conferencing with their grandchildren overseas. So if they can do that, they can do Zoom as well. But it's just that motivation. And also in Asia, we also call it the relationships, because if it's somebody you know and you want to really connect with a person, you will want to learn. So that is that patience. So someone must be patient enough to guide them step by step.
And Lynn, your thoughts?
Well, I think most of it has been covered. I'd agree. When I hear resistance, I do have to finish the phrase resistance is futile. But so I think remembering that fear usually comes out as anger. So when we face resistance and anger and all of that, it is coming from that place of fear. And as Caro and Dave and Joanne were saying, you know, can we really be listening into what's the source of that fear? And are there ways that we can help overcome? Can we have a mentor? I loved Joanne's example of the pouring the water that Dave was saying of, you know, we can help you here, which may give you the ability to better interact with your grandchildren or other avenues, which again is a benefit of Rotary. I have a safe network where I can admit, I don't know what I'm doing, help. And I also would try to see if these individuals who are resistant, can we give them sort of a leadership role for other people who are also resistant or nervous? You know, can they lead the phone tree? Can we applaud and celebrate what they can do so that they're not regularly feeling like they're the outsiders who are being left behind?
Great. So now that we have addressed resistance and we've gotten everyone on board that is going to come aboard, I think, let's talk about engagement. So a lot of people yesterday want to know how to make online meetings fun and engaging. We also know that Rotary and Rotarians love their symbols and their protocol. And so, Kiro, I would love to ask you, do you think, important to maintain some of those symbols and routines during virtual meetings?
Well, I guess what it comes down to is that if the people who are attending that gathering want to continue to do those things, then that's entirely okay, because it is their meeting. And it's really when we're holding a meeting, respecting the wishes of the majority of the people who are at the meeting is generally a good way to go. So whilst obviously having said that, it's important to learn from the experience of doing things online. I think that Lynn described the process of being digital as opposed to going digital. It picks up a number of those things. Lynn described it brilliantly, but certainly it's important to respect the fact that our members are volunteers, that they're there, that they're taking part, and if they want to include some things and do some things in a particular way, that's fine, because it is their group.
Yes, and I think the other side of that would be that it's okay to let those things go.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Again, if everyone in the club is willing to do so. Lynn, I'm going to come to you on this next one. So lots of people were wondering about digital courtesy, online etiquette. For example, like how writing in all capital letters can be seen as yelling or screaming. I'm just wondering if you have some ideas or tips for us to think about. This is a different space. What do you recommend for this online etiquette?
I love the question, and I'd love to crowdsource a document, but I think it would need to be a living document because I think it evolves, especially as more people are getting on, and there are different platforms that kind of get their own rules. So yes, all caps is shouting, but it can be a positive, enthusiastic. Doing all caps for the entire thing, if it's not that your keyboard is broken, and say that at the front, yeah, not really the best plan. But it's also how many emoticons is a big one, and you do them, if you're having the gentleman Dave interviewed this morning, really senior public figure, and everyone in the chat is putting in all sorts of jokes or emoticons and all this sort of stuff, that may not be the right thing. So I think it's just being sensitive to the situation.
Yeah, anybody want to add on to this? I think for me, it really is about setting expectations right up front and letting people know what the tone of the meeting is and how they can participate, and making sure you're going to give everyone a voice. So what do you feel about this online etiquette space?
One thing I would definitely recommend, and this would apply to online meetings as well as face-to-face, is to have a regular meeting review at the end of the meeting. Just ask how it went, what went well, what could we improve, because when that's done properly, and you've got to stop it becoming I thought so and so spoke well and stuff like that. We've really got to focus on the process rather than perhaps on the content. When you do that and you have that kind of conversation going, that can lead to some really good improvements.
Great,
Joanne. I'm just going to say it's not quite etiquette, but it's a sobering tale. We had a tale of a Rotary meeting in the UK where unfortunately someone was taken severely ill during the actual meeting, and they were on their own. And that's led to a looking at in the Great Britain and Ireland at how we run our meetings, and actually asking if you are on your own, to have a number, to have a contact number. So again, you wouldn't have thought about this 6 months ago, would you? But actually, we need to be very aware. We were saying earlier about getting perhaps the older generation to come online. Well, actually, we need to be thinking about them too. So not quite an etiquette, but it's something that needs to be borne in mind.
Actually, another aspect of not exactly the same as having capital letters and all that, but I think in virtual meetings and virtual trainings, it's important to set house rules at the beginning of the session. And also the technical support person will also predetermine together with the organizing person whether are they going to mute all without them being able to unmute themselves, so that they won't be disturbing, because there are people, even if you mute them, they will still unmute themselves and the background is really noisy. So in these situations, then you may have to enforce that nobody can unmute themselves. And those who need to unmute themselves, they are set as co-hosts so that they can do that. And also the technical host will then have to be very, very alert. And another aspect is also control of the chat, because chat you can actually control whereby no one can chat except to the panel. or you can chat everyone, or you can have everyone private chats. So these are up to the organizing person to pre-set it up and agree with the technical support. So that is something that we should do before the meeting and not during the meeting. And the technical support person must be competent enough to do these very quickly. Yeah.
Joanne, I want to stick with you for a second because you mentioned virtual project fair that you did, and a lot of people were really interested in that at the district level. Can you talk more about what that was like and how you engaged people that way?
Okay, that is actually, we started off with the district training assembly under the community service track. I'm actually the district community service chair this year, and next year I will be the advisor. So we were preparing for this session, and then instead of having a one-way delivery and just having the lectures and talking about, you know, all the different stuff, knowledge, so we thought about then showcasing projects. So we actually agreed that based on the time allocated of 90 minutes, we will then invite 5 clubs from the different parts of the district to share about their project. So we give, okay, you have X number of minutes to share your project. So we do a project showcase rather than just the community service chair talking about things or the regional chair talking about things, but we let members showcase what they've done and share, because then the other clubs can learn from these experiences. And we intend to have more of these going forward because this proved to be very successful. So which means that, because the thing about classroom sharing and also district awards, for example, usually we have district awards, and the clubs will then submit their projects to the awards committee or the district community service chairs and the regional chairs. And no one sees these projects, only the committee behind the scene evaluates these projects, right? And only the winner gets to showcase. But in this kind of situation, you can have more clubs showcasing their projects and sharing their projects. So I think through the Zoom platform, it opens up such opportunities for more showcasing and for more sharing, not just within the same region. It actually encourages showcasing across regions, across geographic regions as well. So this opens up a whole new world of, you know, across boundaries and reaching out, engaging.
I love that idea. Yeah. Dave, a question for you here. How can we find entertaining speakers, and is there a way to gauge how entertaining they are in advance?
Well, how do you find entertaining speakers? The first thing I'd say is, if you're scraping the barrel, ask me. I'm pretty cheap. But do you remember what I was saying yesterday about audience? Because you need to think, you know, about your speakers. You wouldn't, for example, introduce a professor in applied physics to talk to a group of children just as much as you wouldn't get a hip hop artist to talk to a group of geriatrics, would you? So you need to think about, you know, who your audience is. And the first thing I'd be doing is saying to your club, well, who do you want along? You know, who are the sort of speakers that would make you come to the club? You know, we had a lady who came along to our club to give a talk on relaxation techniques, and I fell asleep. So it happens. But also, you need to think about the external audience. And if you think about it, right now under lockdown, people are looking for diversions. The Zoom meetings are a perfect platform. So while I know the question is about entertaining speakers, it's speakers that are going to attract an audience, I think. So think about your local community. Think about, if you were to put on social media that we've got this speaker coming along, would people be interested? Would it be a local celebrity? Would it be someone who's entertaining? Maybe a historian, someone who's speaking about a big issue in your community? Because again, that's another way of getting people on board. And just finally, all I'd say in seriousness about how do you find someone who's entertaining? Well, if you go to conferences, to district conferences, to your national conferences, you'll hear some good speakers. Some of them cost, but I'm really cheap.
Excellent. There you go. Hire Dave. We already know he's entertaining. Go ahead, Lynn.
I was just going to say that if you don't have that opportunity, if Dave's already booked, that what we've been doing is actually using a lot of TED Talks. So people are already looking at a screen, and they're available at the time of your meeting. So we have been doing that and aligning it with the monthly theme for Rotary. So it's been a great way. You're getting some of the best of the best. It's a defined time, you know exactly how it'll fit into your session. So just to note that if you do record your meeting, you can't post that online because it is copyrighted material.
Excellent. So all of you yesterday really talked about how there isn't one tool that would do everything you needed it to do. Dave, you use Eventbrite, YouTube, Zoom, you use a whole host of them. But a lot of people were wondering about the technology specifically. So I think we need to address internet security because especially with resistance, I think that's one of the things that keeps people nervous. So Kiro, I'm going to address this to you about, you know, how do we ensure that we use technology that doesn't open our members up to being hacked or supporting a platform with ethics that don't necessarily align with ours? What's your feeling on, you know, virtual security right now in this time?
I think virtual security is very, very important. And I note, for example, because Zoom is generally front and center because a lot of people are using it, that there have been a lot of stories about problems with Zoom. The very first observation I'd make there is that Zoom is looking at the stories that they've told us. They've done a lot of work. There have been 3 major upgrades on Zoom. Zoom is a much easier tool to use now, has many more affordances than it had before. And most importantly, it has a very easy to use password system, passcode as they call it now. And it also has a waiting room. And on top of that, one of the problems that was encountered early in the pandemic-driven move to things like Zoom was that you had the occasional nasty person come in and grab the option to share and sharing not inappropriate stuff. That's not possible these days because the default setting is to keep that with the host, and the host decides who gets to share. So looking specifically at Zoom, there's been a lot done there. But for any tool, whether it be something as simple as a WordPress site, Zoom, or whatever, it's important to learn how to use it. I don't think anyone in this day and age would race out and jump into their car, their automobile, and just drive it down the road without any sort of clues. So it is with all of these other things we're using. They don't take long to learn. There's a lot of options, lots of YouTube tutorials and the like. Lots of people around the place can give you a hand. So learn how to use it. Keep passwords strong. Password, don't use the same. Don't use the password for anything and stuff like that. It does take a little bit of training, a little bit of learning, I should say. But most of these tools are pretty easy to learn because the people who offer them to you want you to use them, and they go out of their way to make it easy. Do be secure. Use things like waiting rooms and passcodes and the like. You should be okay. It's I haven't heard any reports yet of Rotary clubs being invaded by nasty actors. I don't expect to, provided everyone just does the right thing. Yeah.
So, Caro, absolutely spot on. And I know I got a notification overnight from Zoom about the latest security measures that they're including, and they really have reacted very sharply. Yesterday, after the webinar, I got a lot of messages came through to me on my asking me about the Together talks and how we did the technology. So if I could just quickly follow on there, you might remember I introduced you to Phil the Builder. You know, he's a visually challenged guy like myself, but we're on the team there. And I asked him to explain some of the technologies that we use through Zoom. So here's what he says. He says, the deal is we use a Zoom Pro license, which costs around £12 or $15 a month. And this allows meetings of up to 100 persons with unlimited time for your meetings. We have then upgraded the webinar functionality for up to 500 persons. This is the minimum upgrade when you upgrade to a Zoom webinar. The webinar software is identical to Zoom meeting, so the interface works really well. And there are just a couple of key differences. But the webinar allows the live recording to be streamed onto YouTube, Facebook Live, and other custom services. We use YouTube. To be blunt, we don't use Facebook because of all of the Facebook algorithms, and being blunt, if you want to get yourself seen on Facebook, you've got to pay. There's no other way around it. So we use Zoom as our broadcast technology, and then we stream it on live. So we have the chat functions, a bit like you had in the webinar yesterday. We had lots of banter, and again, great to see so much banter yesterday. It was fantastic to see everyone from all over the world. But we use YouTube as our live stream technology, and the reasons why is: one, better stability. Secondly, it's got a better search facility, so you can find what you're looking for online. It's automatically available on your YouTube channel afterwards as an event, so people can come back to it afterwards, and it allows for live chat. So the technology is simple, but Kerry's point is an important one. We're all finding our feet, and so there's lots of tools out there to learn how to drive your car. Just go out there, find, discover. We'll make mistakes along the way, but in the end, the technology, as long as you're sensible, can be secure.
Lynn?
So ditto and ditto. The quick note with the algorithms, as Dave just mentioned, because okay, a pet peeve, I'm a public image person for my district. When you stream your meetings on Facebook and take into account a bunch of the notes that Kara pointed out yesterday of don't stream people eating, especially if it's spaghetti, it can get a little messy. But the algorithm for Facebook is you have to have people interacting. So if nobody is chatting, if nobody is liking or setting little hearts floating up, all of that, you will get suppressed. And not just that stream, everything, your entire channel, your entire page, all of that gets pushed down. So you've actually done yourself more harm than good. With the circling a little bit back to the question, I mean, there's a trade-off. There is a trade-off. What are you trying to achieve with any particular platform activity? Is it your meeting? Is it recruiting new members? Is it raising awareness? Is it raising funds? So trying to figure that out. And one of the, and so what is that cost benefit ratio that you're willing to make, not only for the club, but for the people who will be participating? I mean, Facebook actually has kind of a lot of people there. So you can't always totally write it off. And to remember that Instagram and WhatsApp are owned by Facebook. So you can't just entirely say, oh, well, we'll do this. Well, you're still in that same universe. Different parts of the country, different platforms, they do different things like that are more dominant. Are there issues of censorship in different countries with different platforms? One of the, because as you know, I'm big on structures and frameworks. One of the things to also think about in the marketing world, we looked at owned, paid, borrowed, and earned. And so, for example, if you have a website, you own that, or to a certain degree, although I don't think they'll violate it, but the YouTube channel, you sort of own. It's still somewhat borrowed. Facebook totally borrowed. And we saw that when, as Dave said, they switched to this pay-to-play model. So you invest everything there, the rules change, the carpet's swept out from under your feet. So I will not continue to go on, but I think it's finding that balance of the trade-off.
Yeah, some really good insights even about how technology works itself and how it really is set up depending on what they want to get out of you. Joanne, somebody noted that you talked about sergeants at arms. And so I have sort of, it's like a two-part question for you. What does the sergeant at arms do in the meeting? And this person stipulates without being rude. And then how many levels of backup do you recommend in the virtual environment? You know, you talked about contingency plans, but just talk about how deep your backup bench goes.
Well, actually, traditionally, for example, if we take Zoom as an example, the technical person is usually called a technical host, or you can call it technical support. But we created this terminology and said, why do we call them a technical host, a technical support, which is very technical? Why don't we just call it SAA as well, right? Because the technical actually would also control the muting, unmuting, the admission of people, whether you can chat, no chat. So maintaining law and order. So which is actually part of the role of a sergeant at arms. So we then introduced this terminology so that it's something to familiar with the Rotarian. So we call sergeant at arms as well as a technical host. Yeah. So that's how we implemented it. Then whether we have just one or two. Now, actually, to be safe, we need at least two persons who are capable of doing at least similar stuff. Because if there's only one and it's a very important meeting or important training session, and if that person falls out due to network, or there's something wrong with the microphone, never mind, because the technical host doesn't need to speak. But what if the person falls out because of network? Then what's going to happen? Because maybe in the whole session, there's no other person that can manage that thing. So you need to have at least two. So one main person and a backup person. All the two of them can work hand in hand. And especially when you want to go into breakout rooms, because having breakout rooms will even need at least two, because somebody will be very busy trying to identify who are the ones to be assigned to each breakout room, while another person trying to maintain law and order and looking at the waiting room, who to admit, who not to admit, and also changing of the names, renaming them and stuff like that. So there you may need more than two even. So it all depends on the situation.
Yeah, and so you really want a team. Even though they're seeing one person, you have, you know, a team of people ready to jump in. Even, you know, to pull back the curtain on this Q&A, I've got two colleagues monitoring the chat, ready to jump in case anything happens. So I think that's a really good advice.
And also to keep time, the speakers. Yeah, that's important too.
Lynn, I'm going to queue this question up for you, but I think it's a good one for everybody. As a Rotaractor, I realized that this context brought us closer to our Rotarians, since not only we're helping them to adopt the virtual tools, but we are also able to join their meetings more easily and frequently. I'm hearing this a lot. So what is your advice for keeping this open, vibrant relationship between Rotaractors and Rotary, you know, beyond this current context?
Yeah. Well, I love that the equal footing, if you will, that Rotaractors finally have with us. I've never been a fan of the youth are their future. No, they're today. They're now. So definitely glad that they are part. And I think the openness, again, that has the necessity that has led some older people to, just calling it, to be more receptive. I think leveraging it of finding the influencers in the club to use that sort of language may not be the current president, may not be the traditional official leaders, but who are truly the influencers. Same as we would look on Insta, you know, who are your influencers, and become their BFFs, because they are then going to be able to influence and persuade the others, I think, in the club. But share the vision and invite people along. Back like where we were saying in the resistance, we've had a history as an organization, not absolutely, but this is the way that we do things. And we talked about rituals earlier, and it doesn't have to mean getting rid of rituals, but maybe it's new rituals. And so, but tread gently.
Well, I just follow up. I'm really excited right now because we're chartering a Rotaract club, part of my club. So we've gone to the local university and we are going to charter a club there. Now, the one thing to say is we've been told don't sort of swarm over it. Try to make sure that it's their club. It's not your club. It's their club. So that's a really important premise which we're working to. But I'm really excited by the whole thing because I actually think that the Rotaract Club will help to galvanise my Rotary Club, because I think there's opportunities to work on things together. So we can support them with some skills, and likewise they can help us with some stuff. They're fitter than us, which is a good thing. And we can actually do some project work and engage things together. So I'm very excited on this. I think it's great that the age limit's just been lifted, and as Lynn was saying, that we're just one big family there. And I just think we just need to work together. We ensure that the road tractors get our support, and we will be supporting the road tractors at the university, helping them along the way. But equally, let's listen to them. Let's not be so stubborn in our opinions, and let's be prepared to have an open ear and to work alongside them for the greater good of Rotary.
Carol or Joanne, do you have some thoughts on this relationship and how to keep it vibrant in these times and beyond?
For our club, we have a community-based Rotaract Club and 2 Interact clubs. So we had a batch of Rotaractors where they grew to 30 years old and they graduated and they're no longer there. And now we have another batch of Rotaractors. Many of them used to be from the Interact schools. So they came out of the Interact schools, and after benefiting from being an Interactor, they then joined Rotaract. So when they joined the Rotaract Club, they then in turn become the mentors for the Interactors because they have benefited. So that they then work with the Rotary Club together to mentor the Interact clubs. And also whenever we have projects, service projects, whether it's our own club or joint club projects, we will engage them and bring them along so that we invite them to join us. And whenever there are club meetings, physical club meetings, and there are good speakers, we will also invite maybe 2 or 3 where we'll sponsor them to join us. And some of them are very nice and said, oh, I'm already working, I don't need to be sponsored. You can use that money to sponsor others who may need it. And we've been using that, and every year at the installations, at Chinese New Year Assembly, we'll actually engage them. So now, even at Zoom, in one of the meetings, we said, why don't we dedicate maybe once a month, or once every 2 months, or once every 3 months? We will then have that session for our Rotaractors, and we will have more of this coaching for them. So not just about Rotary, it could be coaching them as part of their growth development in their work or in other things. Because when I was young, I wanted to join clubs and societies where I can be with successful people. And that's the best opportunity to work with these people and to learn from them, working with these. So then looking back, I'll say that could be something they're looking for besides wanting to serve in projects. Of course, there are people who want to contribute to projects. So we need to then really engage them. And we even invited 2 of the Rotaractors to join us at we have the Manila Rotary Institute last year in December. We invited 2 of the Rotaractors to join us, and we also involved them in the promotion actually for the 2020 Singapore Rotary Institute, but it's going to be cancelled. But we involved them in the whole promotion. So it's more about finding opportunities to engage them, to give them opportunities to serve. And one of the Rotary days, we even used and trained a Rotaractor to be the master of ceremonies. We helped them to put up the script to a certain extent, point forms in English and Mandarin, and we gave them the opportunity to be the MC and even a co-MC in the installation ceremony. So I think it's creating opportunities to identify who are the ones that we can develop in creating the opportunities. We also have a Rotaractor who is now with us as a Rotarian as well. So all these are just creating opportunities consciously and engaging them consciously.
I love what I've heard so far, like what Joanne has just said, and before that Dave, and before that Lynn, because there's a number of themes there that I really like: respect, empowerment, opportunities, a 2-way dialogue, not treating these people as, because the term young leader is sometimes used as someone who doesn't know much about leadership instead of being a person, a leader with a lot of ideas. So picking up on this thread, I think there's something we can add to it. And it's something for example, when we talk about mentoring and working with Rotaractors and whatever, and the two are interchangeable in some ways, it's often seen as a one-way thing. But the most effective, the most successful, the most enduring forms of mentoring are a partnership where both players bring something to that relationship and both contribute. And I've seen this done very not on a grand scale, but I've seen this done very well with some very talented Rotaractors, because Rotaractors can bring a lot to Rotary if we let them. And the thing there, though, is you have to let them, and that means going beyond just assigning them the basic no thinking sort of jobs. So they're way too good for that. So yes, just think about two-way mentoring.
Great. I want to move on now to strategy, because again, while the four of you make this all look very easy, none of this happens overnight, and there are lots of discussions and lots of conscious decisions that go into this. So Lynn, I want to start with you. Do you know of any attempts to bring an external focus groups to club meetings to get honest feedback about club activities? My experience is that members assume the general public thinks that some of our traditions, thinks that, oh, the traditions are food, speaking, singing. How can we share? See, my children are coming in. This is a real Zoom issue here. How can we maybe use some focus groups to get an honest picture of how our clubs are perceived?
Excellent. And future Rotarians. Yeah, so maybe not on the club level. One thing that we did here, so whether it's done on club level or a district level, data always works really well for across the board to persuade. And we had the unique opportunity, hopefully not unique, to have a capstone project by the seniors at the local university and the marketing school do a research project to take a look at clubs and Rotary in our district, across the country, all of that, to get their perspective. So our target market for Rotaract and Rotary, of what is their perception. And so that was incredibly helpful in bringing in key leaders when the students were giving their final presentations. They couldn't argue with it. Here was this objective focus group, and I think it gave us some, hard facts, hard truths that we had to work through, but it also set a level playing field so everyone could reference the same data, the same points. So I think it was really helpful to move the conversation forward and get some people who maybe were dragging their feet to be more open. At the same time, I don't think that the goal is that every club has to be identical. For those clubs and the people who really like all the rituals and the singing, like, you don't want me in a singing club. I would not. Yeah, not a good idea. But there are the ones where that would be great. And so I think that's one of the beauties of Rotary, is that we're totally cool about having all these different variations, and there are different clubs. And so when we really think about this, it's this wheel, it's this large connected wheel, that we value finding the right club for the individual versus kind of being greedy and possessive that we need to keep them in our club.
Has anybody else experimented with having some external observers, or even doing, a membership satisfaction survey? We talk about that a lot at Rotary, and I think a lot of clubs don't even necessarily even ask their members what's working and what's not. Maybe not as objective as an external group, but I'm wondering if Kiro, Dave, or Joanne, you've done anything where you've, Dave, for example, I know you're going to a hybrid club. Was that the result of talking to members? How did you happen upon that decision?
Well, I actually saw the original question, which said, what process did you use to determine this? And there are a number of words that I hate in the English language. One of them is washing up, and the other one is that's the way we've always done it. And the third one is process. I'm not a process person at all, I have to say. But what we did in terms of the hybrid club is that we, I, as club president, I felt this is something we needed to discuss. And so rather than conduct a survey, I wrote about it in the club newsletter and said, look, let's discuss it. Let's discuss it in an open meeting, because I said, basically, if we did not become a hybrid club, I feared we would be dead in the water within 12 months. And we had a really good discussion. And actually, I thought we wouldn't go through. I generally thought that people would prefer that weekly fellowship, the weekly meals, etc. And process-wise, it needs a 2/3 majority to get through. But it was a tough decision, and it got through. And I hope you don't mind, because I did anticipate the question. But there was I got a note from one of the people who voted, who was a long-time Rotarian, who wrote this. He said, "I'll be sorry to see weekly face-to-face meetings go, but for the long-term future of the club, I support the move to fortnightly face-to-face meetings plus online meetings for the other 2 weeks. What will be crucial, and this is important, what will be crucial is what we use the face-to-face meetings for and how we can make those online meetings fun. So perhaps for the online meetings, we could meet 30 minutes earlier for those who want to socialize and look very carefully at our program of activities." And that's what we're doing. So not a process-driven membership survey or focus group, but actually listening to our members and making a decision which I believe will be in the long-term interests of the club.
Excellent. Well, we're quickly running out of time here. So I have one last question for all of you. And Kiro, I'll go to you first, then Joanne, Dave, and we'll let Lynn answer last here. But the question is, what does the future of Rotary look like?
I think the future of Rotary, in fact, I know the future of Rotary is exciting, because we've created this opportunity that looks so very different to the past. And having worked with a number of one-on-one with a number of clubs that had, as they were transitioning onto Zoom, I've really sort of picked up a sense of a desire for change by a lot of those people. The clubs concerned are, in many cases, going back to meeting or going to meeting face to face, but they're doing it in many of them are doing it in a different context. They've shifted their mindset now, and it's no longer a case of Zoom and similar sort of programs like GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar being an exotic thing that's only used by a small number of Rotarians in fringe sort of e-organisations. Now people are seeing this as a channel, as a channel to the future. And if we can keep that going, and I have a wonderful feeling from having so many people attend this virtual webinar, I think we're on a winner. Yes, I'm feeling really good about it.
For the future of Rotary, it's definitely going to change, and it will be evolving going forward. Now, time will not stand still. Everything will not stand still. It will evolve on and on and on. So if we want to stick back to traditions, then we will not move on. We will not grow. So if you want to grow, we have to evolve. And all these have to start from ourselves. It has to start with the leaders, as I mentioned, because the leaders have to lead and bring people together. So it's important that the leaders take the lead and change themselves, change ourselves, and everybody takes that initiative. So it takes teamwork, and change management is not easy. It may seem tough. It may seem like, oh, what am I getting into? But once we actually have this positive mindset and we want it to work and we want to learn, then everything will go smoothly. But the most important thing is everything is unity, because when all of us are united as one, that's where Rotary is stronger. So we do not work in silos anymore. For example, we have the membership, we have the foundation, we have the public image, the 3 pillars. So we cannot work in silos. Everyone has to work in a team. We need to know one another's stuff and help one another. So the whole thing is going to be a different style of leadership, a different style of engagement, a different style of attraction and retention, everything. So it's no longer stand still. So if we choose to stand still and we do not want to learn, we resist change, then Rotary will not go on. However, if everybody recognizes that everyone plays a part, starting from ourselves and advocating this change, going through this change management, helping one another through this transition. And this change will not stand still as just being Zoom, because this year it could be Zoom, but next year it could be something else. So are we willing to, to transition to something else? So because the whole world is changing, right? So again, it's just like the cameras. It used to be the Kodak and all that, and then no more cameras. Now it's all the headphones. So things are changing. Technology. So it's the whole thing about digital transformation. So we really need to be up to speed and be open to change and be able to adapt. So if we bear that in mind, then I think Rotary has lots of opportunities, because it is through Rotary that we learn all these things that will be also helpful in our business, our work, and other things, and even engaging with the grandchildren, like what I mentioned before. So don't think as Rotary as just being Rotary. Rotary can be part of your life.
I think Rotary is at a crossroads. I think it's a serious crossroads moment now, because we're at a point where with COVID, there's going to be a lot of call on Rotary in our communities. We haven't seen the start of it yet because we're just coming through this. There are going to be many people who will not have work when we come out of COVID. There'll be more call for food banks more than ever. There'll be more call for the work that we do. And there'll also be a lot of volunteers out there. This is what I was saying in my pitch yesterday, that there's a lot of volunteers out there who are Rotarians, potential Rotarians. And so this is a big moment for Rotary. And if we squander it, we're in the doo-doo a little bit, because we can't afford to lose this moment. We need to be saying to these people, you are Rotarians, help us to help rebuild these communities, because communities will need rebuilding. I can tell you that from the UK. So I think, taking on what Joanne was saying about the model of Rotary, the shape of Rotary, and how we do Rotary, we need to project that forward to make sure that we engage with our communities. I have no doubt Rotary will be here beyond 120 years more. But right now, the way that Rotary is defined could be defined over the next 12 months with how we act following COVID.
I love the idea, the wheel, you have momentum, you keep moving forward. And with that, I think we need to have that vision, because where we focus is where our energy goes and where we're directed. So having that positive vision of what do we envision. And I don't want us to get into a navel gazing mindset with our clubs, with our districts, any of that. We need to really be focused on going out. I think this is a lot of like what Dave was saying, because if our focus is on how do we bring people in, we totally miss the point. If our focus is going out where people have needs, going out to meet people where they are, then that's how people do join in. But I think that's really probably the key.
Well, I thank you all for your time. It's been just wonderful working with you. To the attendees that joined us today, this session is being recorded, so you can share it with those in your clubs and districts, and yeah, just keep doing good work. So thank you all, Lynn, Dave, Kiro, and Joanne. We'll see you again out there in the Rotary world somewhere.